joining me in just a bit as the series heads back to Toronto, where they have a chance to close things out. They haven't been good there in Game 7s, but they haven't had Kawhi Leonard, and now they do. And this guy's spectacular, man. Looking to take over in the fourth, accounted for 38 points, scoring 20 or assisting 18 through the first three. Doesn't always look pretty, but always goes in. Or a lot of times it does. That's pretty. Tim Legler showed you the step back jab, step, rise, bottoms. Suddenly, the Raptors led by 4. 4-point lead. Setting up Gasol for the three. That was after 2 offensive rebounds. That was a critical possession. Now in a tie game. Set up the hot hand. Van Vliet, bottoms, Kawhi. Accounted for 24 of the 33 in the fourth. They win.
I'm not afraid of the moment. I enjoy it, and this was what I work out for in the summer. So you just got to go out and shoot the ball, I guess. That's my mindset. Try to get to a spot, help my team win the game. Just trying to win, either if it's me scoring points or getting my teammates wide open look. Just out there trying to win.
Third quarter, he's been doing it all playoffs. He went into ISO and get to your spot, and it was pretty impressive. The game he played tonight, 35, 9, and 7, it was a pretty good game. It was a pretty good game on the big stage, on the road. Superstar.
He wants the ball, and he wants to make the plays, and he seems to be making the right play for the most part, and you're almost shocked when he pulls up at 15 feet and it doesn't go in. He vaults up there and he has a good release on it. You think, well, there's 2 more, and it doesn't go in. You're like, oh man, what happened? But he's playing, and again, he's playing at both ends. He's rebounding, and again, it really gives the rest of the guys a lot of confidence when you got a guy playing like that.
Joined now by Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A., last week it's 2-0, and you and I agreed it was a wrap. Since then, Milwaukee has suffered its first 3-game losing streak, and I feel like I got popped in my jaw, and it's like a standing 8 count. I can't imagine what I'm seeing. What's changed in your opinion?
Well, first of all, we all look like fools right now. You ain't alone, SVP. That's the reality of the situation. But there's no shame in being made to look like a fool by Kawhi Leonard, right? Because that has been the difference in this series. They were down 0-2. What happens? Nick Nurse makes the adjustments of putting Kawhi Leonard on the Greek Freak. You know what the Greek Freak strength is. He's got the ball in his hands, and he's coming at you full steam ahead. From the moment he gets past half court, he's looking to get into the lane, and you had someone like Kawhi Leonard able to stymie his path to the paint as much as you possibly can. And of course, he had help. As a result, the Greek Freak, the dominant player inside, has been virtually non-existent. The Greek Freak, the playmaker, can't do but so much to create open shots for a bunch of guys that can shoot when standing still and uncontested. But when contested and forced to put the ball on the floor, they ain't the same. And then you've got Kawhi Leonard on the offensive end, dropping 15 to 35 in the fourth quarter. You got Kawhi Leonard defending. You got Fred VanVleet coming off the bench and dropping 7 3-pointers. This is what the Toronto Raptors did. Their bench showed up. Milwaukee's bench hasn't shown up, particularly in the last 2 games. That's why Toronto is up 3-2, and that's why the Milwaukee Bucks are on the brink of elimination, going back to Canada in Drake's house with him waiting. It's a bad, bad time for the Milwaukee Bucks right now.
It is that. And look, Toronto historically has been one thing, right? Closeout game at home, opportunities to seal the deal, but they've never had Kawhi Leonard. So for me, whatever Toronto's history was in an inability to close is null and void, because now they have Kawhi. And Charles said on TNT, and I agree, Toronto has to look at Game 6 like Game 7, because if they don't win there, the Bucks at home in Game 7 might be too much. What's your sense of what happens in Game 6?
Well, I agree. Well, I agree with you there, but I would tell you the reason why they've had difficulty doing those things in the past is because they kept running into LeBron James. That was their kryptonite.
Sure.
He's gone, plus Kawhi Leonard is there. So definitely that assists them. But you certainly have to approach it as if it's a Game 7. You don't want Milwaukee to rebuild momentum by stealing Game 6 on your home turf and you having to come back to the States on their home turf to deal with them in a Game 7. That's just not going to bode well. But right now, you've got to give Toronto the edge. The momentum is in their favor. Their bench is playing very, very well. Whether it's Powell, whether it's Van Vliet, or anybody else, these guys have shown up and they've responded to the challenge. And they have a superstar, not a star, a superstar in Kawhi Leonard. He is simply something special, man. He's on one leg practically. Dropped 15 of his 35 in the fourth quarter. They couldn't do anything with him. They have no answer for him. And I don't see how they're going to get one within the next 48 hours, to be quite honest with you.
I'm done making predictions, man. The last time you and I spoke about this, I was incorrect. I'm just going to watch Game 6 and see where it takes us, and we'll be watching you tomorrow morning. Stephen A. Smith, appreciate you always, my man.
I'm right with you. I ain't making any prediction. I've been wrong too much thus far in this series. I'm saying I'm neutral.
Like Switzerland. That's you. Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Switzerland, my man.
You know, when it's really different when you have a guy, right? When you're with him every day and you're witnessing it all. You know, I certainly remember, you know, he's been unbelievable in the playoffs with the Spurs as well. But you know, you're not as close to it. You know, heck, you might not even have seen all the games or whatever. You know, but again, you know, I can only state that he's been really good, and it seems like he's I don't know. It doesn't look like there's. You know, he gets stronger as the fourth wears on. He wants the ball and he wants to make the plays, and he seems to be making the right play for the most part. And you're almost shocked when he pulls up at 15 feet and it doesn't go in. You know, I mean, he vaults up there and he has a good release on it. And you think, well, there's two more, and it doesn't go in. You're like, oh man, what happened? You know, but he's playing, and again, he's playing at both ends. He's rebounding. And again, it really gives the rest of the guys a lot of confidence when you got a guy playing like that.
Stephen A. Smith in the MKE tonight. The Raptors made some shots. They're now within 48 minutes of going to the NBA Finals. We heard Nick Nurse talk about his superstar Kawhi Leonard. I want to hear what you have to say about what you've watched from number 2 for Toronto over the last three games.
Well, what I've watched the Toronto Raptors do, mainly led by Coach Nick Nurse and obviously the star player that is Kawhi Leonard, is make all of us, including myself, look like absolute positive idiots. That's really what this comes down to. Kawhi Leonard is simply on another level, and everybody else is just spectating. That's what this comes down to in this particular series. We looked at Kawhi Leonard, 15 of his 35 points in the fourth quarter, 22 points in the second half. Fred VanVleet comes off the bench. He contributes 7 3-pointers. You got to remember, this is after Norman Powell and others came off the bench to do what they did. They outscored Milwaukee by 20 tonight on their bench. The last game, they outscored them by 25 via their bench. So you're getting bench production from Toronto, and you're getting a star, albeit injured, playing like a superstar. And that's what this comes down to. On the flip side, you're not getting that from the Greek Freak. We're seeing his limitations. He's limited with his post moves. He's limited when they crowd the lane. He doesn't have any mid-range game to speak of. And on top of it all, they have a starting point guard in Eric Bledsoe. He may have had 20 points tonight, 9 points in the second half. But when it really, really counted, they practically dared him to shoot because they knew he wasn't going to make a perimeter shot. And not only that, you didn't get any production from the bench. The key in all of this was when Nick Nurse decided to take Kawhi Leonard and put him on the Greek Freak. And once that happens, the entire offense of the Milwaukee Bucks appears to have been neutralized. It's 3-0 since Nick Nurse made that adjustment. And by the looks of it, it'll be 4 come Saturday night.
What do you hear from Milwaukee and their guys that you talk to? I mean, I don't think it's a hopeless situation, but are there changes afoot for Milwaukee to try to flip this thing back over the next 2 games?
Well, they got to take it one game at a time. That's going to be their mentality. But the reality is they were saying that after the series was tied 2-2. And in the end, it appears there's not much they can do about it. Again, everything flows through the Greek Freak. You got to remember, the Greek Freak is absolutely sensational. He's a dominant presence when he's in the paint. But what Kawhi Leonard has been able to assist drastically in doing is neutralizing that momentum that he has coming at you once he steps past half court, getting to that 3-point line spot. If you stop that momentum in any way, it neutralizes him. And this is the playmaker. He's not just somebody that scores in the post. He creates shots for other guys. But the other guys can't get the open shots because Kawhi Leonard is all up in him. And not only that, you've got him getting some help. And then when you look for the secondary option or the Milwaukee Bucks, that is supposed to be Chris Middleton. He had 6 points tonight. Now, I understand you had some scoring from Brogdon and Brook Lopez and stuff, but Middleton is an all-star. I don't want to hear 6 points from an all-star. You need more from him. He didn't give that to you tonight. That is a problem. And I mentioned the bench. The bench gave you virtually nothing, and that's what you're talking about right now.
Chris Middleton, yes, 2 of 9. George Hill, okay off the bench, but that was the extent of it. Stephen A. Smith, thank you. Back up north, we'll hear from you on Saturday. Drake already starting to irritate all those Buck fans. He certainly has irritated Mike Budenholzer, coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. By the way, Budenholzer is German. I don't know if you knew that, it's a 60-win season. Right now, what they need is 2 more in the Eastern Conference Final. Coach Budenholzer, live on SportsCenter.
You know, we've been a resilient group all year. You know, we just need to think about going and winning one game, go to Toronto and get that tonight. You know, a little bit of a strange box score. Obviously, Van Fleet from the three-point line and them in general from the three-point line was huge impact on the game. They got to the free throw line more than us, and just we couldn't get. We needed a couple of rebounds there down the stretch. That, you know, I think when we look at the film, we'll feel like if we could have, you know, gotten a few more defensive rebounds from, you know, the 5, 4, 3-minute mark on, you know, maybe the end result would have been different. But you know, we'll get ready, we'll get prepared, go to Toronto.
Coach Bud, Greg Matzek, WTMJ. You mentioned rebounding. You out-rebounded them on the night, but it seemed like some of their threes were long rebounds, a couple that glanced off the rim, especially late. From your view, were those hustle plays made by the Raptors or stuff you can't really do much about given the way the ball was coming off the rim?
Some of both, but you know, I think when Kawhi Leonard shoots a 3 from the three-point line and goes in and gets his own miss, that is a critical play that can't happen. You know, the one with the shot clock violation or where it glanced off the rim. You know, Gasol and Brooke are battling, and if it just takes a little slightly different bounce, Chris is going to get that. And you know, still a little uncertainty on exactly why they went to review and the order of things that occurred in that particular instance. But, you know, that's a tough bounce. Others we got to get to, we got to get, find a way. All 5 guys got to participate.
Matt Velasquez, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, just continuing with those offensive rebounds, just how deflating can those plays be when you guys are trying to battle back?
Very.
Eric Name, The Athletic. Bud, I'm curious with it. It's quite a scene to see blood running down Giannis's face on a TV screen. Just what do you think of his whistle tonight and kind of the way he's officiated?
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like he should be at the free throw line more. You know, they have a couple of guys that are veterans. They're very crafty that seem to get there a lot. You know, Lowry, when he drives, you got to be incredibly disciplined. He creates a lot of contact and is rewarded for it. Giannis, you know, creates a lot of the same contact and doesn't seem to get the same whistle, get the same reward. But, you know, I think the officials, they got a tough job. They do the best they can. We'd love for Giannis to get to the free throw line more, feel like he deserves it. But that's, you know, we're talking about the rebounding, the three-point line, those types of things. Those are the things that we got to focus on and get better.
Free throws, Bucks 13 of 18, all 5 misses. Giannis. Meanwhile, the Raptors shot 25 of 31, so 12 better from the free throw line, 8 better from the three-point line in this game. They've played 5 games total now, and each team has scored 546 points. Raptors, though, critically have been ahead by 1 in 3 of the 5 games. They are 48 minutes away of getting a date with the Golden State Warriors. Game 6, Saturday, Toronto.
Despite what your screen says, not too even. Still to come. We're waiting to hear from Kawhi and Giannis. And speaking of Kawhi, before he hits the podium,